my name is Angelina Mancias. I'm a Communications and Education Services representative with the Water Replenishment District of Southern California. Thanks for having me.
Cool. And tell me about your role.
So as it's mainly a public affairs position. I do a lot of community affairs, work with the community, ensure that the work that we're doing at WRD, managing groundwater for 4 million residents in southern Los Angeles County, is just people know what we're working on. We have a lot of big projects that we work on to reduce our independence on our dependence on imported water from Northern California. And we're the second largest groundwater agency in the state of California. And we manage groundwater for 4 million residents. So a lot of my work is just being out in the community, ensuring that people know the good work that we're doing.
Excellent. Now, one of the things I like to do is I like to start off from the beginning of my guest story. Like, what was school like? For beginning with K-12, were you involved in something? Did you have a interest? Like, were you in band or any other type of thing?
I was. I grew up here in Southgate, so I'm a local kid. I played basketball. I was an athlete when I was in elementary school and in high school. I played baseball and I played basketball. So most of my high school career, I was an athlete at Southgate High School. Prior to that, I played, Little League at the parks, at Southgate Park. In elementary school, I was involved in student government. I think I ran for, student government vice president or something. It was such a long time ago. But I was always involved on campus in school through either sports or some type of organization, campus organization. Growing up in Southgate, I went to LAUSD school. We had a lot of students in our school, and I was just always really interested in government and how that factors into our lives as citizens. So I was involved. When I went to college, I came to Cerritos College, and I was involved with the Puente Club and Mecha here on campus.
Excellent. And tell me, how did you decide, did you know right away where you wanted to go to school, what major and all that?
I didn't. When I was in high school, I wanted to be a teacher. And I went to college. First, right out of high school, I went to Cal Poly Pomona. And I was, at first, I was a sociology major. Then I changed it to psychology. Eventually, I transferred here to Cerritos College, where I changed my major to political science, and I minored in Chicano studies. After a couple years here at Cerritos College, I transferred to UC Riverside, where I continued my major in political science and Chicano studies with a minor in Chicano studies. So I didn't know what I wanted to do right out of when I was in college. I was lucky enough to be afforded a wonderful opportunity through the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute right after college, and I got a job in Washington, D.C., working for Congress. And once I had that opportunity and I knew what that was like, I knew that that's the field that I wanted to go into.
Cool. And when you were on campus, what was the experience like? I know sometimes people can get overwhelmed after high school and as they're getting to college. The campus is much larger. Mm-hmm. Getting to know everywhere where to go. Did you get to at least start off with friends? Was it hard for you?
It was different. As I was a first-generation college student, as a lot of students that come to Cerritos College are. Both of my parents dropped out of high school. So I didn't have that experience at home. I couldn't ask anybody. So when I went to university, it was such a different experience, kind of like a culture shock. You come from, my high school had about 1,000 students, and that's a pretty big high school. But going to Cal Poly Pomona, it was just completely different, and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't have anyone to ask. So it was really eye-opening. And when I eventually left Cal Poly Pomona and came to Cerritos College, I really made an effort to become part of a campus community, and I think that's why I started getting active on campus with these organizations, because you have a group of people who are like-minded and have a common goal, and you're able to kind of help each other out that way.
And so, well, do you feel that like you benefited from like the prior majors that you had before, like when you were transitioning to like working with Congress and stuff?
Yeah, a lot of the topics that you work on, they intertwine at some point. So if you're a political science major, you take the majority of our poli-sci classes, but you do some sociology, some psychology, some philosophy. So they all help me in my career trajectory. I think when you go work for something like Congress, you could never really be prepared for that. So a lot of it was just on-site learning, learning about Congress by being there. It was really the only way to do that.
And one of the struggles that students face sometimes is, books can be expensive. Did you have to work while going to school?
Absolutely. I worked all through my education. When I was a student here, I worked at a pretty famous hardware store in Downey called All American Home Center. And I was in the tool department. I worked in the tools, hardware, and paint department. So I was kind of a salesperson there. When I went to UCR, I worked I was a transfer counselor, like a peer mentor. So I would travel across Southern California and set up shop at, when you have little college fairs outside, and just talk to people about UCR and what they could expect as a transfer student there. I also had jobs working in medical research. I was a research assistant at a clinic in Los Angeles. I worked for a nonprofit that did medical delegations in El Salvador. So I had a lot of odd jobs when I was in college. And I think a lot of those jobs prepared me for work doing a lot of the stuff that I do now, just interacting with different people, learning how to communicate with them. And though I had a lot of jobs and I worked, almost full-time, and I came to school full-time, I think it was definitely a rewarding experience to be able to do that. At the time, it didn't feel like it, but it was.
And sometimes it can be stressful when balancing both work and school. Like, how did you time manage?
It was really stressful balancing work and school, especially being active on campus and being involved in different organizations and being a full-time student. So I had a calendar with a lot of due dates that were coming up, and I would just prioritize all the important work first. If I had schoolwork coming up or a big essay or a big test coming up, then I would calendar that and make sure that I would arrange my work schedule around it. If I had to stay in on weekends and work on homework, which happened a lot, I would do that. But I think as long as you're organized, it's a lot easier to manage all of these demands on your time.
And sometimes we can struggle with a certain subject. Like for me, it's math. What did you struggle with?
Math. I am definitely not a numbers person. So math was tough. Here at Cerritos College, I had to take a statistics class to be able to transfer out. And it was probably the most stressful point of my life, knowing that in order to be able to go, I had already been admitted to UCR, but in order to go, I had to pass the statistics class. And I remember just dreading coming to that class every time I had to. Definitely math, though.
And what strategies did you use to, succeed and stuff? Like even for finals and midterms, those are like the most stressful times sometimes.
They really are. I think the strategies that I used were to study in a group, because if there was something that I didn't understand, someone in that group would understand it and they were able to explain it to me. So I had study groups. I had groups with friends of mine who were also in that math class, in the statistics class especially, and we would study together. I would really use the campus tutoring. I think they really understand what the students are going through, especially students who have to work and who have other commitments and have a lot of time constraints. So I definitely made use of that, and coming to office hours, talking to my professors when I didn't understand the work or what was expected of me.
And we'll be right back after this quick break.
Were you born from 1945 to 1965? People born during these years are 5 times more likely to have hepatitis C. But most people don't know they're infected. So even if you try to eat, exercise, and take care of yourself, you can still have hepatitis C, a serious liver disease that often has no symptoms. In fact, people can live with hepatitis C for decades without being reported being sick. But over time, hepatitis C can cause serious health problems, including liver damage, liver failure, or even liver cancer. Getting tested is the only way to know if you're infected with hepatitis C. That's why the CDC recommends everyone born from 1945 to 1965 get a blood test for hepatitis C. Treatments are available that can cure this disease. So talk to your doctor about getting tested. It could save your life. A message from the CDC.
Budokan has made music, he has played music, with the most famous names in early rock and roll and R&B. He's got stories, memories, first-hand experiences on that most exciting time in music. Nobody else can offer you that kind of perspective, and he shares them with you every Saturday afternoon at 5 Pacific. Listen to the early rock and R&B, as only Budokan can give it to you. It's the best of Budokan, only on WPMD on the net, where people make a difference.
Hi, I'm Seals from CJM's Radio Hour. I'm Cal from Asian Haka.
Hi, I'm Justine from Beyond Main Street.
You can help support WPMD. Just visit our website, WPMDOnthenet.com.
Once you get there, click on the Amazon.com banner near the top of the page.
And that'll take you to Amazon.com. And just shop what you always do. WPMD will be considered your purchase and support the Cerritos College Foundation. Awesome. And extra.
It's a great way to help WPMD.
Yeah, all those great markets at the same time. Remember, just go to WPMDOnthenet.com, click on the Amazon banner, and start shopping.
It's your way to make a difference for the place where people make a difference. WPMD on the net.
And thanks. We appreciate it.
Happy shopping and thanks a bunch.
And we're back here on the Falcon Spotlight. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Rob Flores, here at Cerritos College, WPMD Studios, where people make a difference. And remember, you can email me at robert06flores@gmail.com. That is robert06flores@gmail.com. And you can visit the fan page. Just look up Cerritos College Falcon Spotlight on Facebook. And also look it up on Google, and it'll take you there too. Now, I'm back here with my guest, and so tell me, what tips do you have, like, for people that want to get experience? What it's like working with, like, political figures as well?
So I worked for Congresswoman Sanchez for about 9 years. I worked in our Washington, D.C. office for 5 years and moved on to our district office here locally for another 4 years. And I think one of the biggest and one of the most important things someone can do who wants to go into one of those fields is to do internships. A lot of these offices have internships in their local district offices. And by doing that, you get a lot of really good experience working for elected officials, working for offices, doing administrative work, doing community services. So when I was hired in Washington, D.C., I was hired through the fellowship. And I did the fellowship. It was 9 months, was paid. And when that was over, I was hired as a legislative staff. So I worked in D.C., I worked in the Capitol and Congress, and I helped write different types of legislation. I did a lot of policy work, and none of that would have been possible had I not taken advantage of the fellowship program. And when I applied, yeah, I really thought that I was not going to get that fellowship. I was a student from, UCR, and I knew that people that would be applying were probably a lot of students from Ivy League schools, and I really, at the time, didn't think that I could compete. And fortunately, someone else thought otherwise. And I was awarded the fellowship, moved out there, and I stayed there for 5 years. And it was something that I had never thought of before, but the opportunity came up and I took it. And it was probably the most, the thing that defined my career working in DC. So definitely take advantage of internships in the area. Every elected office, whether it's assembly or senate, they have some type of program for students who are interested in government. If people are interested in working in Washington, D.C., there are also programs through the universities like UCDC where you can go and work in D.C. and do an internship for a semester. It's kind of like study abroad, but you work in the Capitol. So there's definitely a lot of different opportunities to take advantage of to get to that point. And you can just go onto their websites and look for them.
And how do they, what about like living arrangements? How did that work out?
There are different, a lot of internships in DC are unpaid. So you would have to go out there and find an internship that has a paid component or housing component. There is one. The program that I did was the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute Fellowship. CHCI.org is the website, and they have every semester they do paid internships and they provide housing. So you go on, you apply. They offer scholarships, they offer fellowships, and that when I was working out there, I received a stipend every month that covered my housing. I covered food and transportation for the food and transportation for the duration of my fellowship.
Cool. And did you at least have like friends there, or were you like the only one that like?
I made friends. I had one friend who lived in Washington, who lived out there when I moved out. But when you go out there, a lot of the people who live in DC are not from DC, so they're kind of in the same situation as you are. And it's pretty easy to make friends because everyone is there, they're working, and people go out there not so much a family, so you make your own kind of little community. I had a lot of friends that happened to be from LA. One of my really good friends and a colleague of mine happened to also be from Southgate, and we didn't know it at the time, but we went to school together. He graduated a year before me, and when we found out, it was really funny. Just knowing that we were both from this really small community in Southeast LA County, and we were working together in Washington, D.C. So it was a really fun experience.
Cool. Tell me about the process of writing legislation.
Working for a congressperson, the congressperson has, 650,000 constituents. Every congressional seat is broken up that way. Congresswoman Sanchez's district encompassed a large portion of LA County, and it's impossible for one person to manage the legislation for all of that area. So they hire legislative staff, and each congressperson has a staff. They vary in size, but that staff is responsible for assisting the congressperson in ensuring that the legislation that they're writing is beneficial to the district. And that was my job, and it was a lot of fun. It was really interesting, really learning how legislation is written and what factors into it. So the process, it's nerve-wracking. It can take years, sometimes more than 10 years for legislation to be written, to get passed, and sometimes it never happens. So it was just really interesting to see the way it happens in Washington, D.C.
And there's like a different language, like terminology, right? That's within a legislation piece.
It's very different. It's not regular like what you would read in a book. It's definitely a lot of jargon, a lot of policy language, and to be able to understand that, it just takes time to read through it and know what the words mean. I mean, one word can change the definition of a whole bill. So it took some time to get used to. And not only that, but to be able to kind of translate that back into the language that we all normally speak, right? So that's important too, because you can write, your congressperson can write the best legislation, but if nobody really understands it or knows what's going on with it, it doesn't really have an impact on the community.
And then also, like when you interned, you also had to go to like city events and stuff and represent who you were representing.
When I worked here in the district office as a director of community outreach, that was my main job. The congresswoman was in Washington, D.C. a lot of the time when events happened here in the district. So it was our job. We had a full staff of field representatives who would go out into the community and represent the congresswoman. And a lot of that is what I do now at WRD as well. Go out into the community, represent WRD, and just let people know what we're working on here in Southern LA County.
And tell our audience again the names of the degrees that you got now.
I have a bachelor's degree in political science with a minor in Chicano studies.
Nice. Tell us about the minor.
Chicano studies, I had always really been interested in Chicano studies. My aunt, when I was younger, was really, she made an effort to teach us about our history, our background, and I was always interested in it. So when I had the opportunity to minor in it in college, I took it, and I learned about the history of Chicanos in California and the United States, and I think having that background really helps in ensuring that we can represent those communities in Congress and in the place I work now.
That's something that people always ask sometimes is you'll hear different terminology when referring to Hispanics. Like you hear the word Latino, but you hear the word Chicano. Is there like a difference?
There is. There is a difference. I think on the East Coast, they use Hispanic a lot. In California, you hear Chicano a lot, Latino. There is a difference, and people use them interchangeably. I prefer the term Chicano, Chicana.
And why is that?
I think for me, and this varies, from who you ask, but for me, it's a term of like empowerment. The Chicano movement in the 60s and 70s really defined that era and that community. So for me, that's why I prefer it.
And sometimes I always ask my guests this question too: who have been your inspiration?
Wow, I could talk for hours about my inspirations, but I can definitely say that. Growing up, my mom was definitely an inspiration. My mother, she dropped out of high school when she got pregnant with me when they were 18. And her and my father were able to raise this family. I have 4 sisters. I have 3 sisters. There's 4 of us. And she went back to school when I was in college. She got a nursing degree. My father is a construction worker. And my parents, as young as they were, they knew that in order for their family to flourish, they had to move out of, they grew up in the projects in East LA. And they moved their small family to Southgate, and they worked every day to ensure that their kids had opportunities that they didn't. So definitely my parents, my mom, my dad, my aunts, and my family, they were also teenage parents, and they were able to overcome a lot of those barriers and succeed. And they all work in the medical field now. I had a lot of different role models growing up, a lot of the teachers that I had the pleasure of learning from. Here at Cerritos College, I had an amazing counselor, Armando Soto, with the Puente project, and my English professor, Dr. Linda Rose. She no longer works here, but they definitely helped me along and pushed me and ensured that I had everything I needed to succeed here and beyond. So, I mean, there are so many just personal heroes that were vital in my success.
Tell me about Puente.
Puente is a learning community. I don't know if I know it's still active here on campus. I don't know if it's different from when I was here, but Puente was a learning community. It's a program where you come in with kind of like a cohort, and it's a counseling and English and writing program. It's really intense, and the main goal of the program is to ensure that underrepresented students transfer to the UC. And they do that by really focusing on writing. You know, writing is so important, and it's something that really played a factor into my career in Congress, here at WRD. And it's because of Puente that I really learned how to write effectively. And when I transferred to the UC system, it made it a lot easier to compete at that level.
And, speaking of, when you were mentioning about Chicano studies and stuff like that, I know that sometimes people, like, when we come to school, like in early education, they have us, speak English. And nowadays we see there's starting to be a little bit more programs where you bilingual as well. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
So when I was growing up, in elementary and junior high, and high school for that matter, there was a big push to eliminate bilingual education altogether. And I grew up speaking English. My both of my parents, they spoke English, and in our household we spoke predominantly English. I always understood Spanish, but I was never able to speak it. I think being bilingual is definitely an asset, and I think it's about time that we start to recognize that. We live in a global economy. We no longer, we're not isolated, and being able to communicate in other languages is important to our success. So, we should be promoting that.
And then, one of the big figures that, people talk about with Chicanos and stuff like that, is, Cesar Chavez,
Mm-hmm.
Can you mention about him?
Yeah, Cesar Chavez, the farm worker movement, you can see a lot of parallels in a lot of movements that we've had. Just, it's fighting for underserved, underrepresented people. And learning about Cesar Chavez, growing up, in Dolores Huerta, it was definitely inspiring to see that. And I think now we don't have very many predominant leaders in the Latino community, and we need to embrace them when they do come up. And we have leaders, but they're not as visible. So learning about him and learning about the movement, that definitely changed a lot of the ways that I thought growing up and going to college. So it's an inspiring story to know that there was one person who was able to start this movement, and eventually the movement grew and it grew, and it started a whole community movement, the Chicano movement.
And so after working for the Congresswoman, tell me how you got to where you are today.
So I worked for the Congresswoman here locally in our district office. Her office was in Cerritos, and I moved to Norwalk. And after a couple of years, I realized that though I loved working for the Congresswoman and working in this community, I knew that I could take those skills elsewhere. And with the Water Replenishment District, it's so, we manage groundwater. And people turn on their faucet. You don't really realize all the stuff that goes into getting water to come out of that faucet, right? And they do such amazing work here. And I wanted to be part of that. When you look at issues like that involve these natural resources, a lot of times they become civil rights issues. And you don't have to look too far to see that. We can look to Flint and you see contaminated water, or you can look to small communities in our own region. And knowing that this district was at the forefront of making sure that we have water resources in Southern LA County, it was really appealing to me to be able to be part of that. And that's, I applied for the job, and I was hired. And a lot of it was due to the large network that I was able to build working for Congress and Congresswoman Sanchez's office.
And tell me, this water organization, what's the difference between that one and the Central Water Basin?
So WRD manages the water under the ground, and that's the major difference. We're the only ones in this region that manage the Southern LA County portion, and it's a huge district. It's 420 square miles, so that's really large. It's 43 cities, and we manage water for 4 million residents. That's over 10% of California's whole population. And when you think about, I mean, California is a large state, so the difference is we manage the groundwater. We make sure that it's clean. We make sure that there's enough of it under the ground. So we do that by a lot of different things. Right now, we're about to break ground on a huge facility in Pico Rivera that'll purify recycled water and use that to put it back in the ground instead of importing it. And once we start doing that, we're going to be able to be completely independent from purchasing expensive imported water. And it's one of the largest water projects going on in California right now, and we're really excited about it.
Last year, I remember hearing Central Water Basin was doing stuff to help with water conservation when the governor wanted, something done. What did you guys do?
We do that too. We have a lot of education programs that we establish in the community. We serve 43 cities, and we're in all of these cities, and we're talking about how to conserve water. One of our big programs is an eco-gardening program where we teach community members how to garden so that you're not wasting water. So using native plants, using different types of irrigation systems that don't waste water. We also have a program called Project WET, where we work with our local education leaders, teachers, and school boards, and we teach them about groundwater so that they can pass it on to their students. We also have a pretty strong community presence where we're at local events and we pass out information on water conservation, and it's a huge operation. It's very multifaceted, and we do a lot of different things as an agency, as an organization, to spread that knowledge. A lot of times that's all it is. You just have to make sure that the information is out there.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to learn, the different types of stuff. I just figured, you just turn on this thing, that's it.
Exactly.
But now, after, listening more and more, it's like this complicated web of, pipes under the ground, a bunch, and then on top of that, the regular drinking water and the recycled one. How does that work?
So the recycled water, right now, a lot of it is mostly used for irrigation, for watering. If you see a purple pipe somewhere, that's recycled water. If you go to a lot of parks and medians on the streets, it tells you that it's irrigated with recycled water. It's a different pipe system from what I understand. I've only been with WRD for a couple of months, so I'm learning at the same rate, learning about all of these water systems. And though I did some work around water and water policy, it was never one of the major portfolio issues in my job. But there definitely is a difference between the water that comes out of the tap. It's purified to a different standard than recycled water that is used to irrigate.
And how do they clean the water? What do they do to it, the process?
There's a lot of different processes that they use. They can use UV light. They use a reverse osmosis. They use chemicals to purify the water. It's filtered. There are so many different ways to clean water.
And how long have we had like the purple pipes? Is that something new or?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Do you guys have like meetings or something like the basin does?
Yeah, our board meets once a month. Our board meets once a month, and they discuss whatever's on the agenda. You can look at our work on wrd.org.
Excellent. And we'll be right back after this quick break.
It's like the world has been lifted off your shoulders, and now your focus is supporting this child.
Not another hospitalization. The patient is unmanageable. He saved my life. He saved my daughter's life. He saved our family.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures. Learn more at stjude.org.
If a fire is in your home, you and your family have just 2 minutes to escape. That is why it is important to have a working smoke alarm. Have several of them and test them monthly. You should also develop an escape plan and practice that plan so that everyone in your family gets out in less than 2 minutes. A home fire can strike anywhere, anytime, devastating families. But we can change that. Make your plan today. The American Red Cross has other tools to help you and your family stay safe. Visit redcross.org to learn more. And welcome back to the Falcon Spotlight. Ladies and gentlemen, this is America's best public affairs student radio show in the country. And I'm back here with my guest. Now, another thing is, for my audience, if they would like to contact you, how can they reach you?
Sure, you can reach me by email. My email address is angie.mancias@gmail.com. That's ANGIE.MANCILLAS@gmail.com.
And another thing I always ask my guests is, what would you like your legacy to be?
Oh, wow. I think I'd like my legacy to be that whether it was in my career or my hobbies, the stuff that I do in my personal time, like, I have a Girl Scout troop in the city of Southgate, that I did everything I could to ensure that resources were directed to the communities that are underserved. And I did that when I worked for Congress, for Congresswoman Sanchez. I do that in my work at WRD. And I think it's just really important for everyone to not forget the importance of that. And whether I'm helping my former interns with college applications or job applications or serving as a reference for them, I want to ensure that my success isn't siloed and that I'm able to help other people reach that level as well. So I think definitely that.
Excellent. Tell me more about the Girl Scout program.
So last year, I have a niece. I have a 5-year-old. She's 6 now. I have a 6-year-old niece. And I wanted to get her involved in the Girl Scouts. So I called the Girl Scouts and I asked them, what the process is. And they informed me that in Southgate and in LA County, there were thousands of girls on the waiting list because there were not enough troops. So it turns out that the Girl Scouts is a 100% volunteer organization in terms of the actual troops. And there were just not enough troop leaders willing to start troops in our region. So I decided to start one. And I have 10 girls, 10 6-year-olds, and they're all actually going back to school now. So we'll be starting up again in September. They kind of took a little bit of time off for the summer. But our Girl Scout troop are girls from Southgate, Downey, and Norwalk. And we're really active in the community. We have a beach cleanup coming up in October. And just being able to work with these 6-year-olds and kind of teach them about community service and how to be good citizens and how to be good with each other and the importance of college and the importance of education. It's really rewarding. I mean, at the end of the day, they're 6-year-olds. We don't know how much of this is going to transfer into their life, but right now they've had some pretty amazing experiences. We were able to sell thousands of boxes of cookies, which was kind of a pain, but they really enjoyed it. So it's been a really rewarding experience. If anybody wants to start a Girl Scout troop, send me an email. We can set you up. It's not a big time commitment. You set your agenda, you set your schedule, and the parents and the girls will meet on your schedule. So let me know.
Oh, cool. I remember going to the park and there's these house things, and I think there's a ton of Boy Scout ones too, huh?
Yeah, the Boy Scouts, they camp out at Southgate Park. They have it's the only park I'm familiar with, but they have camping section. A lot of the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, for that matter, they have campsites throughout California. Unfortunately, my girls are way too young to go camping but with us so far. So once they're of age, we're definitely going to go camping, and they're all really excited to make s'mores and camp out in tents, and it'll be fun.
Cool. I'm thinking when you see TV, you see I guess it's that sash, and you get different badge things
Yes.
and stuff like that.
So my Girl Scouts, they're daisies, and they have a different kind of badge system, and they have it's a little flower, and every petal stands for a different, courage, bravery, a time you were a good citizen. So once they fill up the daisy, they can move on to being the next level. So the daisy troop really is for teaching the Girl Scouts how to be Girl Scouts, which is interesting because I was not a Girl Scout growing up. So I had to go to training to learn what the Girl Scouts was about and how to be a Girl Scout.
Cool. Do you guys also do first aid and stuff like that?
Yes, they actually, our last meeting, they had a class on how to do the Heimlich maneuver. And next year they'll have a first aid class where they learn other things, maybe CPR. When they're a little bit older, we'll start teaching them that stuff.
Cool. And let's say that's another thing too. When I've interviewed people and law enforcement and stuff, it's amazing because you can enter a field and you don't necessarily have to have a degree that's in that particular field, or you just want to get to know it.
Yeah, it's true. When I worked in Congress, there were people who had a lot of varied degrees, history, law. Really, I think college prepares you to work in a lot of different fields as long as you have the writing skills down and the reading comprehension. So it just depends. It depends where you end up.
The other question I ask my guests too is like if they retire, like what do they see themselves doing after retirement?
Oh man, retirement is a long way away for me. So I love the beach. I'd probably try to live on the beach somewhere and just sit on the beach and read. And I don't know. I never really thought of it. It's just so far. Maybe do some travel. Hopefully.
Oh, cool. And what advice do you have for students that want to enter in the same field that you're in?
Definitely look at internships and fellowships and different opportunities to get into the field. You know, sometimes they're unpaid, and I know it's hard for students to take on those roles, especially given that they have to work full time and or part time and going to school full time. But even one internship on your resume, it's gonna help you in terms of just filling out a resume and also the networking that's involved. Make sure that when you meet somebody who's in the field that you're interested in, you get their contact information. Networking is really vital. You never know when they can help you or when they can be of service to you when you need a reference or when you need you have questions, because they've been through it. You know, all of former interns that have worked in our offices, they know that they can reach out to us and we'll help them either when they're applying for jobs or if we have an opening, you know, in the office and we know of someone that has done good work for us in the past, we'll always offer them an interview. So it's really a good way to get your foot in the door.
Cool. What about for people that like they're very quiet and shy and stuff, and they want to like kind of like have more public speaking skills? Like, what can they do to like get out of their shell more?
You know, when I was in elementary and high school, I was very quiet and very shy. And one of the things that really helped me break out of my shell was my customer service job. When I worked at the hardware store, I was forced to talk to people. And it was tough, but eventually I became pretty good at it. And I think I had a speech class here at Cerritos College that helped me with my public speaking. It's still not 100%, but it's a lot better. And I believe there's like maybe different organizations here on campus that they can get involved with that'll help them with public speaking or just working in the community.
You know, it's always great to have, you know, alumni come back. Did you what was like your favorite thing about the campus when you're here?
The favorite thing, you know, I was fortunate to have really great professors here at Cerritos, and I had a lot of really cool classes that I enjoyed coming to. I was able to build a campus community around the Puente Project with a lot of my cohort, the students in my cohort. And it's definitely the relationships that I was able to build with students and faculty here on campus that I still have to this day. A lot of my very close friends were friends that I made here on campus. And here it is 10, 12 years later, and we still communicate, we still talk, we hang out. So it was really rewarding to be able to build those relationships with people.
You know, some people, they just go to class and they go straight home. Tell us about the benefits of, you know, getting in a club and like student government.
You know, being a first generation college student, I didn't really have that resource at home, people that I could talk to who had been through this experience. And it was a really refreshing to be able to talk to people who knew where I was coming from, who knew, you know, they had the same issues, the same problems, and being able to talk to them about these issues and kind of just know that I wasn't alone, you know. A lot of times, especially on big campuses, you can feel really isolated, especially if there are other people who don't necessarily have that same experience. So working with a lot of my friends here on campus really let me know that I wasn't alone and that I had a network and that I had different resources that I could reach out to just help me finish. I mean, I was here at Cerritos College for about 4 to 5 years before I transferred, and a lot of that was because I had to work. I had to work to pay for school, and I had to work to kind of just live. So having a group of people who understood that and who were able to work with you and study with you and just, know where you're coming from.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here on the Falcon Spotlight.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the first episode of the semester for America's Best Public Affairs radio program. Until next time, folks.